Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Katie Cleesby, and I am the founder and owner of Rexpert. And each Wednesday, we host Wellness Wednesdays for the last couple of months. And this Wednesday, we have a special topic on making sure that you're doing the right exercises to prevent injuries. And we have a guest today, Jennifer Cochran, and her business is called Fitness Design Solutions, where she kind of meets you where you're at and provides expert creative solutions to get moving again after illness and injury. So welcome today, Jennifer. Thanks so much for having you today to speak.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
And I will, let's see, make sure that you can share your screen now.
Okay.
And we can start the presentation whenever you're ready.
Awesome. Okay. Zoom is a little bit weird because I can't always see what you see. So hopefully you're seeing my screen. Oh, that's new. Are you seeing just my presentation? Are you seeing my title screen? You're muted, Katie.
Yep, I think so.
Okay.
Yes, we can see it. It's a little bit small. I've never seen that view before, but I can see it.
Oh, how is it showing up?
It's like a tiny, like not tiny, but it's a smaller version. Are you able to go to the next slide?
Yes, but I'm guessing it's probably also going to be tiny.
That's okay. I mean, we can still see it, so.
Okay. So it's pretty graphic with a couple quotes. So it's nothing, nothing too heavy on the slides.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and just jump in. I'm Jen Cochran with Fitness Design Solutions, and I've been getting people moving again after illness and injury for nearly 20 years. I'm a lifelong learner, which has resulted in the accumulation of many tools in my toolkit, from Pilates and restorative yoga, run coaching. I'm a licensed massage therapist in Virginia, a certified lymphedema therapist, and I'm a nationally board certified health and wellness coach. So when it comes to injury recovery or getting moving again after an illness, sometimes what determines how we move forward is really what's between our ears. The stories we tell ourselves can propel us forward or hold us back. And in either case, we may be helping or hurting our body. So whether our approach is helping or hurting is also sometimes up for discussion. Asking for help is a strength, not a weakness. And the sooner we do it, the faster we get back to where we really want to be. So let's jump into today's topic and get you bouncing back like a champ. So this is a premise that I live by. In 2016, I was hearing a whisper to get a mammogram. I was 43, in the best shape of my life, best weight, fastest running times as an adult, good eating habits. 2 days before my mammogram, my doc told me I was one of the top 5 people in her practice. I was doing great. Then that mammogram revealed I had 3 small tumors that kicked off a 1.5 years of treatments and surgeries for breast cancer. If I hadn't heeded the whispers early, relying on only my healthy lifestyle, I might have been diagnosed much later than I was. So how I see this show up in my studio might look like this. I can't turn my head to the side. Can an hour of massage therapy fix me today? Then I ask, did it start today? No, it started like 6 months ago, but I was busy and now I'm in pain that I can no longer ignore. Sound familiar? If it does, you're probably not alone. So in order to take quick action, we need to really be paying attention. So when everything is working, we may not notice the whispers. So no pain. Let's see. Okay. Sorry. how you move through your day may be more unconscious than conscious when we're not in any kind of pain, right? So that doesn't mean perfect form. It just means that nothing is talking to you. Then you trip on an uneven sidewalk. You become a little more conscious of what is around you. And this kind of ebbs and flows. But here's why it matters. Our habits and the compensations our bodies develop, like the compensations Katie talked about in her posts leading up to today, they become unconscious. Bodies are amazing. And think of everything you absorb in a day, like moving out of the way of a person at the grocery store, picking your way through the people in a crowded race. Gravity weighs on us. At the end of the day, we're a little bit heavier than we were at the beginning of the day. All these things have an impact on how our body compensates and the habits of how we move. Then you add an injury to that scenario, and the body becomes very skilled at compensating you away from pain, which ironically can end up causing you more pain and a longer recovery arc in the long run. So then our movement becomes a little more conscious, but it may not be good for our body, or what we might call competent movement. Once we become aware, this is the time to act. So right away, not after you hit the wall, but at that first sign. So for runners or athletes, here's an example of what this might look like. So you're on a run and your foot, knee, hip starts to ache, or you get a stitch in your side. Taking action in the moment looks like hydration and nutrition for the stitch, or experimenting with whether it's possible to move out of the discomfort by changing your stride or looking at how you're putting your feet on the ground. If you can make a change, great. Make the conscious adjustment and rock on. We get tired when we're out on the road. Like our feet might we might be more on one side than on the other. Like things happen. But if you can't make the adjustment, ask yourself, can I walk for the rest of this training without creating more pain? Or is it better to cut the day's workout short? It could be the onset of bad shoes, or simply setting your foot down on the trail wrong and needing to rest it for a day or two. Walking it off without creating more pain is often better than pushing through and possibly creating a more serious injury. So a bad day on the trail is just information, miles under your feet. They count whether you ran them hard or you walked halfway, because something wasn't right. And I get it, athletes be athletes. And I'm going to tell you, if I never hear the phrase no pain, no gain ever again, we would all be better off for it. Moshe Feldenkrais, his movement work had a big focus on the eyes. How we use them or don't can really impact how we move. And this is a core component of the work that I do with my clients as well. So I'll talk about this a little bit more later on with some of the tools that you can have in your toolkit. So if you're ignoring the whispers, you laughed at the pain, and now the compensations or pain that cannot be ignored have settled in, we have to get really intentional. Most of the time, uncovering those invisible habits requires getting in front of a mirror. So your eyes can tell your brain and your body what actually is good movement versus those invisible habits and compensations that have settled into our body. So when clients start to see their imbalances, it can often be really disconcerting, and you might feel like something's really wrong. And yes, imbalances can cause problems, but we are creatures that walk around on 2 feet, and compensation is totally normal. Perfect posture is actually weird. So remember, you're normal and everyone is struggling with something, especially if you're challenging your body with things like dopey and Ironmans. That's why we stay intentional and we take quick action. So rounding out the chart is this unconscious competence, right? This is like the holy grail. Having your body work exactly the way it's supposed to work without having to think about how we're moving is the dream. So I often use the example of slipping on ice. So if your core has been trained to be your primary balance stabilizer and not your flailing arms and legs, then when we slip on some ice, our core kicks in. It pulls our body to the center. We regain control and we don't fall. If it hasn't been trained, you may find yourself grasping for something to hold on to regain control. In the absence of a handhold, you're going to fall. But remember, we're all a work in progress, and unconscious competence takes a lot of conscious competence and intentional movement. So now I'm going to stop my share so that you can see me, and I'm going to review some tools that you can put in your toolkit to help improve performance, manage sore muscles, and stay in the race. So, and then I can answer questions or talk through a quick case study, whatever would be most helpful for you. So I'm going to stop my share here. There we go. All right. So I'm here in my Pilates studio in Ashburn, Virginia, and I've got some tools that you can see my brain speed balls back there. These are like play balls that you might remember. They're similar to those red balls maybe you played with in elementary school. And they can be inflated or deflated. I have one over here that's a little less inflated, so it's easier to catch one-handed. And it's got letters and numbers on it. So I talked about the work that Moshe Feldenkrais did. And he really felt like where your eyes go changed how you moved, right? Next time you're out on the trail or riding your bike or whatever the case may be, take a look at the people around you. Look at how they move. Look at where their arms are. Look at where they're looking. Are they looking down on the ground or are they looking up? So with this ball, we can track it. Like I can pick a spot on the ball and I can turn my head and follow the ball. Or I can keep the ball in front of me and keep my eyes on the spot and turn my head, which is actually going to open up my field of vision. So when I'm looking straight ahead, I can actually perceive more of the room around me, which enables us to move better. If you're having a balance challenge, that mat on the floor there could be problematic because you're going to catch it out of the corner of your eye. You're not going to be able to identify it. Like walking through the obstacle course that can some days become my studio, the more things we pull out and play with, the more we open up our field of vision, the better our body performance is. I've been working with a person who broke their ankle in 2 places. It's possible to break your ankle in 3 places. She broke it in 2. Ironically, she had recovered pretty well. And about a year ago, she started to notice that it was going downhill. And we discovered that around the time it started to go downhill, she had had an eye injury. And we think that possibly the ankle was starting to go downhill, but that the eye injury actually made it worse. So we play ball with 2 balls, one that is a little less deflated and one that's a little more inflated. And she catches with 2 hands on the inflated one, and she catches with 1 hand on the less inflated one. And sometimes I'll say cross, and she'll cross her body. And the first time we played that game, 90% of her limp left her gait. From when she had come in, we had done some walking to see what her gait looked like. 90% of the, like, her knees were bending more, and she turned with more ease. And I said, what did you notice? And she said, oh my gosh, I turned without taking 5 steps. I don't have a peg leg. Where'd my peg leg go? Like, I've been walking with this peg leg for a year. And it was just playing some ball. And we've added to that. We're looking at our muscle imbalances because walking with a peg leg and not using your leg causes the muscles to atrophy. So now we're looking at what does that look like to now start to address the imbalances that are going on that are kind of at the core. So in addition to tools like Brain Speed Ball, I also have charts that go on the wall. But we also have our trusty foam roller. So I know Katie is an Ironman participant, so running, biking, swimming. This is your best friend. I have run several marathons and many, many, many half marathons and 10 milers and long runs. And this is the stretching that I do. That might sound weird. But
My
I'm not
husband, I would say my husband literally chases me with that. He is so good about rolling. We have that gun, like the massage gun. And I can probably count on one hand in the last 10 years how many times I've used a foam roller or stretch, and I'm my own worst enemy. Like, I have injuries because it's my fault I don't stretch. And I'm taking accountability for that. But he'll be like, you need to stretch, and like batting me with the foam roller. I'm like, I don't want to, it hurts too much.
And I have a friend that is an avid marathon runner. She wrote a book about her road to Boston, and she swears by this. Like, this is all I do for stretching. And she will be the first one to tell you that the more you do it, the less sore you are. And any kind of pain that shows up in your body, if you get on the foam roller and roll your glutes and roll your hamstrings and roll your IT band and roll the front of your calves, I am telling you, it will take care of 85% of the aches and pains, and with nothing else. But I also noticed this is where fast action really is your best friend, because I have a client right now that had an ankle injury, and she was like, this is terrible. I can barely walk. And I was like, okay, you need to get in here so we can figure out what it is. And she came in and I did some muscle work on it. And as I was doing the muscle work, she was like, oh, that's really unpleasant. And then she got up and walked and was like, okay, but it's like a lot better. So we had her using a ball. Like, this is a hard ball. These are called pinky balls. You can get them from OTPT. This one's harder. This one's a little lighter. They're still not squishy. They're like thick rubber balls. But she started taking this and rubbing, like massaging all around her ankle and the top of her foot. And she was wrapping the ankle with ice twice a day. And then she came in and it got a lot better. She was like not having pain, and she was like, okay, it's muscular. Like, I did something and it's muscular and I feel so much better. I need to use my tools. And then she was in this week and she's like, she got down on the floor and made a face. And I was like, what was the face? And she said, oh, my ankle. And I said, are you using your tools? And she was like, no. And I said, okay, get back on the tools. Like, even when we feel good, we want to keep using the tools, because if we stop using them, then that discomfort builds back up and the muscles are getting tighter. And then when we get to the point where we're like, okay, I can't avoid this anymore, then it is going to be really painful.
So keep using the tools.
Yes. Using the tools is really the most important thing that you can do, for sure, for sure. So, Katie, what have you experienced? Do you want me to do a case study, or?
Well, I wonder, we have a participant, Rick, if you feel more
yeah.
comfortable typing in the chat, or if you want to come off verbally, you don't have to turn your camera on. I don't know if there was something that brought you to this presentation that sparked your interest and you're like, oh, I have an existing injury, or this is my back, or whatever it is, fill in the blank. I wonder if this could support my journey. Feel free to add.
Great question.
Like his mic is off. Maybe he's typing it in the chat as well. Okay, maybe he's listening in the background. Yeah, I mean, I'm in PT right now for, as you said earlier, a compensation injury. And I'm finding that I, even though I was able to do long distance endurance races, my body was compensating, wasn't activating like my glutes and my quads and pulling all those muscle groups. And I'm getting to the point where I can finally do a squat again and use both legs. But like you said with your friend, my biggest fear when I'm done PT is that I will go right back to where I was. And like, I'm scared to finish PT. They're like, you're doing great. Like, I think you're only going to need another week or two. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I should add sessions. Like, I don't want to go back to what I was doing.
Well, and I'll be honest, that's one of the areas that I end up working with a lot of people, right? You finish PT and you're like, oh, I mean, I'm better, but I'm not quite there. And sometimes just having someone's eyes on you, even if it's once a month, like having someone's eyes on you, or having, like, I don't know if you run with your husband or if you have someone that you work out with, swim or bike or any of the try things that you do. Like having someone's eyes on you that knows what they're looking for. Like if you're not really using your right side, like my client I had her doing some wall squats with the ball, and my ball's over there. So I had her do way back there in the back corner. So we had the ball up on the wall and it was behind her back, and we were doing some wall squats, and I was looking at her legs, and it was really clear that the left leg was smaller than the right leg by quite a large margin. And so we started doing like, okay, squat with all your weight on the right. Now shift to the left, come up on the left, go down on the left, shift all your weight to the right, go up on the right, because it was really difficult for her to feel with those compensations. It was really difficult for her to feel using both legs together. Because as soon as I said, come to the center, she just went to that side that was stronger. And it was just invisible. And those habits become so invisible. I had a client come, he was finishing PT, and it was for an L4, L5 disc herniation. And he's a tall guy, 6'5", big guy. And the PT said, I mean, we've really done all that we can do. Maybe go to Pilates to strengthen your core. And he called me and said, hey, do you know about L4, L5 disc dysfunction? And I said, I do. And he and his wife worked with me together for a couple of months. And it also turned out, in addition to the L4, L5 issue, which had been like a catastrophic issue, he had had a knee surgery 5 years prior, and he had an infection post-surgery, and he never fully rehabbed the knee. And so that was also contributing to like what was going on with the back, and like we were strengthening his core, but he still wasn't quite where he wanted to be with all the other activities. So then we started looking at, but he'd had an MRI, and the orthopedic surgeon was like, your knee is great. Like structurally, you're sound. So I was like, okay, I had a car accident where I had a knee injury that took me 8 months to rehab. So here's what my surgeon told me, and here's what we're going to do. And we just started really like getting really intentional with how that knee was functioning and not functioning, and bending it more. And by the time we were done, he had a stronger core and that knee. And we also used, in his case, we used a combination of like Thai massage, because I'm also certified as a Thai practitioner, which Thai is like, as a friend of mine says, it's like someone stretching you. Like, it's like doing yoga, but someone is moving your limbs for you. So we used a lot of like muscle work in addition to studio work to really get that back on track. And it was a good 5 years post surgery. And it probably took us about a year to get him totally back where he could run like 4 miles a day with no pain. He was playing basketball with his kid, like all the things.
I think that's the one of the hardest challenges for me is right. Like you do all these things, you think you're doing them well or right, correctly, and then you realize you're not, and it takes so long to get back to that point. Like for me, I've been working on this since January, and they're like, no, you don't run until the beginning of March, maybe end of February. I'm like, what? And it's taken so long to get to this point. Like obviously, like you said, it's the more you do it, you got to do your tools every day. And then if you're not, you kind of go backwards. But rebuilding, I can't imagine a full year, but you'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the goals were different too, right? Like he'd been living with this for quite a while. There was a lot of immobility in the joint. So it was a different, and his goals were different. His goal was to be able to run 4 miles a day without pain, to be able to play basketball with his neighbors and his kid. Like the goals were different. We have to look at like what our goals are.
Right.
When I did Dopey, and Dopey is an endurance race at Disney Marathon Weekend, and I did it a year after my chemo ended. So my chemo ended in December of 2016, and in January of 2018, I ran Dopey. And when I trained for Dopey, I was really intentional. Like I did all my training. I was running to a specific or walking. There's a lot of walking when you do Dopey, because it's 4 days of events. And I was very intentional. I came back the first day and my mom said, "Oh, so it'll take you longer tomorrow." And I was like, "Well, it will take longer because it's a longer race." And she's like, "But you'll be slower." And I was like, "No, I'll be the same time, just tack on how many extra miles. Like it's this is my mile time. These are the miles. That's when I'll be done." And she was like, "No, it's longer. You're going to be slower." I was like, "I'm not, because this is what I'm trained for." And on the marathon day, when I was still at that same per mile time, she was like, "Okay, so I guess you really meant that."
Yeah.
But it was like, it's that intention, right? We have to be really intentional with our movement. When you run, do you use a watch that shows you your balance?
Oh no. Yeah, I've got a Garmin. I don't know if they have a feature for that.
Garmin does have a feature for that. So make sure that's selected in your run settings.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I can tell you specifically what it is. I'll be honest, like I am not an elite runner. Like I am a solid middle of the pack runner, but I have like 49.6 to 50.4. Like my balance is almost 50-50, which is very uncommon.
Wow.
And
Okay,
I
I'll have to
do
add that.
think that is like from yoga and Pilates, like just being able, and I also have had we were talking yesterday, and I had a car accident 16 years ago, and I've run thousands of miles since. My left leg still fatigues faster than my right. And even with that, I'm still pretty balanced. But I watch it while I'm running. And then it's almost like having eyes on yourself, right? Because you can look at it and be like, oh wow, I'm really heavy on my right side. Because it's looking at how long you keep your feet on the ground on the different sides, and it's also looking at your stride. So it's almost like having eyes on you to say, oh, I'm really imbalanced here.
Yeah, that's a great tool. I love that. I can add that to a toolbox. I mean, I've always been, like you said, middle of the pack, if not slow. I mean, on a good day, I'm a 10-minute miler. I used to be able to run 8:30s and 9s prior to my cancer journey. And I haven't been able to get back there since, but I honestly think I attribute it to Ironman training and just being fatigued and compensating and so I stopped all of it and just peeled back the layers, and from grounded muscle activation and preventing these injuries. And it's hard because I just am built to just continue to endure and do all the things, but that I learned that that's not helping. That's not helpful.
Yeah. It's really interesting. When I ran my first marathon, it was in 2000, and I hadn't run since high school. And my mom actually said, I was polling people because I was going to raise money I was going to fundraise to run as part of this team. And so I was taking a poll of who would pay me money to see me run a marathon. There were a lot of people that were willing to pay money to see me run a marathon at the time. But my mom was like, yeah, you can't run a marathon. I was like, oh, that's it. My paperwork's in. I'm done. I'm going.
Yeah, watch me.
Of course I can. Like that's crazy.
Yeah. I've always wanted to try. I think I took one Pilates class years and years ago at Gold's Gym. And at that time, I think it was like 22 or 23, and I didn't have the patience for Pilates at that point in time. I think I was like, the breathing freaked me out, but I'm 36 now, so I want to give it another go. So maybe I'll try.
Well, and Pilates on the apparatus is different than Pilates on the mat. So it can be challenging because Pilates on the mat is the hardest Pilates that you can do. The apparatus can give you feedback. It can give you support. Like we have springs. My computer's on my Cadillac right now. So we have springs, we have bars, there's different, we're moving our body against resistance. As opposed to when we're on the mat where we don't have as much feedback and everything requires you using your own muscles. So if you let something go, you're automatically coming into your compensation.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, like when we were in a V and we're doing the breathing that way, and I was like, this is so hard. This is harder than yoga.
Yes.
But interesting.
Well, and I have a client who is in his early 80s, and he's been doing yoga forever, and he was a marathon runner, and right, he's got the athlete spirits. And he's 82. And I have to keep explaining, like, he still goes to yoga with the 20-year-olds. And I'm like, that's awesome. But let's break down some of your yoga. And I'm like, you need to go to yoga with the idea that yoga is strength training.
Yeah.
And he's like, but it's for stretching. I'm like, no, yoga is strength training. I want you to be thinking about your muscles every moment that you're in yoga class. And I had him on the mat one day, and we were doing some like warriors and some down dogs. And I was really like slowing it down and making him take up space on the mat. And he was like, this is so much harder. I'm like, yoga is strength training. Like, shift your view.
Especially in those warrior one where you have to be in line, pull your knee in, like tight core. Yeah. I mean, and that push pull kind of theory. So, okay, wow, this is so great how the conversation shifted to yoga and Pilates. So before we wrap things up though, do you want to talk about like how people can contact you when they watch this on YouTube and your business info?
Absolutely. Again, my name is Jennifer Cochran, and I'm with Fitness Design Solutions in Ashburn, Virginia. And you can reach me at jennifer@fitnessdesignsolutions.com, or you can check out my website at fitnessdesignsolutions.com. I have some case studies on there. You can see the different ways, the different kinds of people that I work with. And if you happen to be a breast cancer survivor, as Katie and I have both mentioned that we are, I have a charitable program here in Ashburn that combines fitness and health coaching to help get people moving again after they're done with treatment, but before they're like really feeling confident. It's designed to help people feel confident and strong moving forward into all those activities that they love to do before. I've been there. I know what it's like to be running. I was a little bit slower than you before my diagnosis, but I was running like 10.5-minute miles. And the first time I went out after my treatment, I was running like 14-minute miles. And I was like, okay, I got to go out and see what it looks like. And not going to judge it. I'm just going to see what it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's hard too as a runner because yeah, I haven't run since Cozumel, so which is almost three months now. So when I do get cleared and go out for run, it's not going to be 10:30. It's probably going to be like 12, 13, even 14. Like, oh, but got to start somewhere and keep peeling back the layers and get down there.
Yes. And once we get started, like those times come down, your body remembers, like,
yeah,
you can get faster.
Well, thank you
it'll be so
much.
much better, right? Because you'll be
Yeah.
more balanced and you'll be using all the muscles in your body.
Well, that was the goal too. You know, I always wanted to get a running coach, but they're super uber expensive. And, you know, insurance will pay for PT. So, and that was like the same thing, essentially. They looked at my running form and they were like, you're not utilizing all these muscles. We see how you could be so much faster. We're going to help you change your running form and get you back out there. It's like, sweet. That's a better option.
Well, and you can see the ladders that are behind me. You probably can't see what's underneath them, but there's carts underneath them that help us with gait. So like how you're moving, and there's ways to set those up to see like, oh, this foot wants to be further in front of that foot. Or when you switch the feet, one's going way far out, but not very far back. And one's going way far back, but not very far forward, right? Like how our gait gets out of sync.
It's interesting. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think running is so simple, but when you break it down, it's not. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. We really appreciate your insights, your tools and strategy for injury prevention and kind of opening up your vision, like you said, equals better body performance. And so this episode will be recorded on YouTube and you can rewatch it and contact her, and I'll follow up with an email. I usually try to do the follow-ups on Saturdays. So if there's anything you want to send to me, like a handout or a program you're running to include in that email in the next couple of days, and then I'll send a follow-up, say, here's the link. Here's Jennifer, here's her contact info. She's a program she's running, and yeah, support local businesses.
Awesome.
I
appreciate it.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Rick, for joining us. And
Thanks, Rick.
yeah, we'll be in touch. Bye.
Take care. Bye.